Ladies and gentlemen, when I'm working with clients in talking with them about stakeholder-centered coaching, I have noted that it's very important to be able to, in a simple way, explain them what stakeholder-centered coaching is all about, and that they feel that it's a structured and well-defined process. So please allow me to shortly explain to you the Marshall-Goldsmith stakeholder-centered coaching process. The whole process is focused on measuring leadership growth, but also guaranteeing leadership growth. So typically it's a 12-month process where we start off at the beginning with 2 assessments, a structural assessment that provides us objective information, and also behavioral interviews where we interview a number of people around the leader, and that provides us with examples, opinions, and helps us to understand how the leader is couched in the organization and how he operates. So basically strengths and areas to develop that come out of that. Now these 2 reports come together at the leader, and together with the coach, the leader discusses and decides 1 or 2 areas for the leader to grow at. At the same time, they will decide and select a number of stakeholders to involve in that process, typically 6 to 8 stakeholders. Now before we start implementing that whole leadership growth process, the leader has to refer to the boss and the sponsor of the program to make sure that he or she agrees with that specific leadership growth area as well as the stakeholders, because at the end of the day, if the leader is growing in areas that the organization, i.e. the boss, doesn't care about, it doesn't really matter. So the leadership growth area should be an area that is important to the leader but also important to the organization. Now following that, the leader goes into a monthly stakeholder involvement process to make leadership change visible and drive that change, and therefore we use a 7-step process. So the leader, let's say, focuses on execution and decision making to get better at those 2 things. He goes to the stakeholders on a one-on-one basis every month for a 3 to 5 minute discussion and asks them for some suggestions on how can I get better at decision making, can you give me 2 or 3 suggestions. So he asks these suggestions, he listens to the stakeholders, thanks them for their contribution, and then after having talked to all the stakeholders or solicited their suggestions through the email, then he collates an action plan, he thinks it over, collates an action plan, meets up with the coach to discuss and sanitize that action plan to make sure it's impactful, and then go to step 5, respond to stakeholders by sending the action plan or parts of that action plan to the stakeholders to emphasize to them what he is going to do to get better at decision making and execution in the next 30 days. And then the next step is to execute that action plan on the job. So implement the change, make the change visible, and then follow up with the stakeholders towards the end of the month again for asking new suggestions. So the leader goes through this process throughout every month. So after 3 or 4 months, we do a leadership growth progress review, which is a short online assessment to gauge the stakeholders' opinion in how they see that the leader is growing and changing in the area of execution and decision making, as an example. So that leadership growth progress review is then being presented to the leader, and also a copy of that goes to the sponsor or the boss of the leader, so that we now can really kind of gauge and measure how leadership growth is really happening. So we do that, the whole monthly involvement of stakeholders, that goes for a period of about 10 months, and then throughout those 10 months we do 3 times a leadership growth progress review, and the last leadership growth progress review that happens in month number 12 is basically also then the measurement stick, and if the leader has shown measurable improvement as determined by the stakeholders, then also we get paid for that coaching engagement. And if change doesn't happen, then basically we don't get paid. So that's also our commitment into the process to guarantee measurable leadership growth of the leader. Now, so this is really in 2 minutes how you can explain to the client how the process works, and you can finish that off with showing this slide in emphasizing how our organization is structured across the globe, that it's really you, Marshall, and a couple of hundred other people. The value proposition of Marshall being the #1 coach around the world and therefore providing high quality coaching services comes off really well with clients. I really love that idea. that there is a guru at the top of the organization. Then guaranteed measurable leadership growth, the no growth, no pay clause. That's really optional. It's up to you whether you will use that or not. At the same time, local coaches in many different countries. So we have more than 900 coaches around the world at the moment in 45 countries and about 200 cities. And we have about 35 languages that we can service. So that's a real good value proposition to clients, that they not only just work with you at this geography, but they basically can work with anybody in any geography. And then the strong point of the whole network, which is extremely unique, is that all the coaches are stakeholder-centered coaching certified. So everybody follows Marshall's process, which is a great guarantee for the client that they get the same level of service as it relates to coaching in the various geographies and the various coaches they engage. And that's a very strong value proposition. So have fun working with that.